Amen. So, let's summarise what we've spoken about thus far. We've asked the question why we are not harvesting Levites. And the answer is, my sister, why are the Levites not joining us at this moment? Do you have an idea?
We saw that the priests are not yet ready. We are not yet in harmony.
The priests are not ready. We're not in harmony. The problem is not with the Levites. The problem is with us. So we're not ready. We're not in harmony. And we still have a special work that God needs to perform for us, with us, upon us. So we want to explore a little bit more about what that issue is. So that's where we started. Then we discussed the concept or the symbology of a priest, Levite, or Nethinim. So, my sister, could you explain what is a priest, Levite, or Nethinim? What did we say those symbols were referring to? Not that bit. It's this board work here. We'll do the first fruits in a moment. Priests, Levites and Nethinims are all had the same concept, the same symbol, so it's not the issue of first fruits, because not all of these are first fruits. So they represent something else. Okay, so go back to the beginning. So that's the right thread that we're going on. The priests are called from the church, but let's start at the beginning. How do you call people? Yeah? Okay, so start your sentence from the beginning. I'll help you. A message. So you carry on.
So a message is given to the priests.
A message is not given to the priests. Message is given to... Don't help her, please. Message is given to the church. What message is that? What do we call it? So the everlasting gospel is given to the church. And?
Okay, the everlasting gospel is given to the church, and the priest responds to the message.
Okay, so the everlasting gospel is given to the church, and the priests respond. We'll stop there. I want to ask a question. My sister? Yeah. My sister told us that the priests respond. Does the church respond?
When the message is given to the church, the priests respond, and some of the church members are made, and they don't respond.
Some of the church members
They don't respond to the message.
say the last bit, they don't respond.
They didn't respond to the message.
So they don't respond to the message. Sister Joy, do you agree with that? That the church does not respond to the message. The question is, do they respond to the message? So, if I offer you something and you say yes, did you respond to the message? You know where this is going? Okay, so does the church respond to the message? They do. Everyone responds to the message. So this is remember, this is only a parable. You could argue not everybody even hears this, which is the reality, but we're working with the make-believe, the thing that is not true, this model which we call a parable. So everyone responds. Are you okay with that, my sister? Everyone responds. Because the everlasting gospel goes to a people and it creates... What does it create? Creates two classes. If it creates two classes, then everyone must have responded. Yes? So let's finish. Start again right from the beginning. The message.
So the message is given to the church.
Message is given to the church.
Then the church responds to the message.
Everyone responds to the message.
And that message creates two classes.
Creates two classes of people.
The foolish and the wise.
We don't want to call them foolish and wise. We want to try and keep to the terminology that we've got here. We call them the priest and the church. Then the church has a second opportunity. We call them the Levites, my brother. Explain that.
If the message is again taken to the church, then it will produce another two classes, the Levite and the church.
Good. Everyone responds.
Yes.
So our original model says the message goes to all the church. Is that true, my sister? Does the message go to all the church? Priests. Goes to everybody. Everybody hears it. Everyone in the church, all 17 million Adventists heard that message. Okay, so this is where we take the model, the theory, the parable, and make sure it fits with reality. Because the reality is not all the church heard that message. We okay with that? So we have a model that is holistic, that is comprehensive. So when we talk about two groups in the church, the reason why we have two groups is not because we like two groups or we see it in the Bible, in those stories. We see it in a number of places. What's the reason, the conceptual reason, why we have Levites? What was the problem? What was the problem in the church when the message went to the church? What was the problem here?
The Levites?
No, priests. When the message went to the church, what was the problem there?
Some responded positively, others negatively.
That's not what the issue is. If the message went to the whole church, how many lines would we have? Don't answer for her. If the message went to 17 million Adventists, 1,000 said yes, and 16 point something million said no, wouldn't the story be finished? Why wouldn't it be finished?
It wouldn't be finished because it will form two classes of people.
Two classes.
You will have the priest and the Levite, the church.
Okay.
When the time of the priest ends, the priest now will go back to the church to form two classes here.
Why would the church have a second opportunity?
That's what the line teaches us.
Does it? Does it not teach that there's thousands, perhaps millions of people in the church who haven't properly heard this message? And that's what this line of the Levites is showing.
It does, but I still believe those that refuse the message at the time of the priest can still have a chance to get it. And that wouldn't mean because the message didn't go to the whole church.
So the church has two opportunities, and the Nethinims have, or the world has, one. Does that seem fair to you? Obviously so, because you think that's what it's...
For the nicknames, it's a different case.
Yes, so we had two chances, and the world has one chance. So if we failed as a priest now, can we have a second chance?
No.
So priests can't have a second chance? Nephilims don't get a second chance, only those Levites do. Because they're failed priests. So what we end up having if we go down that road is a model that actually really doesn't have consistency all the way through. At least in my thinking. I know real life looks complicated, but I want to suggest that the reason why we have two lines here is because essentially most of the church never heard the message. They never had an opportunity, and they're going to be given an opportunity for whatever reason they didn't hear. Perhaps they weren't born in that time period, and this line is longer than most people think, or they've been in some shape or form hindered by the church.
Does that mean the whole church will receive the message at the time of deliverance?
Was that a question?
Yeah.
So the question is, does the whole of the church receive the message for the Levites? So if we said that this message went to the church but only a certain proportion heard it, responded properly, then all the people that never understood or heard the message properly, they would have to have an opportunity. So yeah, everyone would have to have this opportunity of receiving this gospel message. All the people that are left. I don't know how many people have heard this message properly thus far. Say if there's 17 million, maybe 1 million heard it. There's 16 left that have never heard properly the message. So that message must go to those 16 million.
But in reality, I can't say.
Okay, so if that's not reality, when you go to the message to the world, this one, church, when you go to the world, do you think in real life 7 billion people will hear the message? If we can't manage to deal with 16 million, are we going to manage to deal with 7 billion? That takes even greater faith. Let me suggest something. No, someone suggest something. Hand up. Do you think, well, there are 7 billion people on this earth. I know there are some indigenous people who are, really, really isolated and don't mix with the rest of the world. But I don't know what percentage is that. That's 0.000, a few thousand in the world. Separate to those people, do you think all 7 billion people have heard of President Donald Trump? No? What country would not have heard of him? Sorry? Which country? I didn't hear what you said, sorry.
I'm saying mostly, those third world country like Seychelles,
Like what?
Seychelles.
I can 100% guarantee that, first of all, the Seychelles is not a third world country. It's a protectorate of France, and France takes care of its islands, and so that's one point. And they've heard of President Donald Trump. Guarantee it. I went to their next door neighbour twice. Reunion. And we know in Mauritius they've heard of him. Seychelles is only their next door neighbour. They've heard of the President Donald Trump.
I meant to make a point that not everybody in this country.
Some of them, sorry?
Some people may have heard of him, but not everybody. When you go to the real world, not everybody has heard of Donald Trump. Some people is to them.
Greek to them. Greek, you said Greek, yeah? Like foreign to them. Okay, that might be the case at this moment, which I doubt. I think everyone in the world has heard of him. Because everyone in the world has heard of the United States. And everyone knows who the President of the United States is, especially this one, because he's, in many ways, just out of control. And if they don't know about him today, they will in the next 12 months or 24 months. I can't imagine anyone in the world that hasn't heard of him. But your point is interesting. Now, if you believe, then time prophecy, we all do, and you think not all the world is going to hear this message, because that's what you're suggesting, yeah? How can Christ come if not all the world has heard him, or his coming, or has heard the message, the everlasting gospel? Can he return if all the world hasn't heard? You say yes.
That's what I'm protecting, because I believe we can't really approach the 17 billion people in the world, even at the time of the mechanisms. I don't think the whole church would hear about it.
So, what's your solution? She says the whole church is not going to hear, the whole world is not going to hear. So, what's the solution? So, you make a point that I think many Adventists haven't really confronted. Who's going to listen to us? So the first point is, perhaps we don't realise who and what we are. Perhaps we really don't have an understanding of what end time prophecy looks like. And the third point is perhaps we're not going to be doing the everlasting gospel by ourselves. Perhaps someone else does the work for us. Mr. Snyder. Sorry, not Snyder. Mr. Whisper. Go ahead. Does all the church hear the message? Does all the world hear the message?
No.
No. So if we all agree that all the church and all the world do not hear the message, what would it have been like 200 years ago? If you went back to, I'll see if it's on the board somewhere, 1798, 1844, would all the world have heard the message then? Would that have been possible? If you find it impossible now, would it have been possible then? So how do we have a model that works if you're going to say just say no?
When you read the book of Colossians chapter 1 verse 23, Paul says that the gospel was carried to the whole world.
Do we all know Colossians chapter 1, 23?
Yeah.
Put your hands up if you're not familiar with the verse. Okay?
That it went to the whole world. So that's what it's suggesting. But if you go into real life, that gospel never came to Africa and maybe to America. It only came to the then civilized world, which was the pagan Roman Empire. So the pagan Roman Empire is what Paul defines as the gospel going to the entire world. So I believe if Christ will have come in literary history, the gospel will have gone to the then Christian world, which would be basically the United States and Europe.
Anybody want to comment on that? In the time of the Millerites, post 1844, the gospel only needs to go to two continents, the United States and Europe, and everyone else doesn't make any difference, essentially. Do we believe that?
Yeah.
Who doesn't believe that? Who's a regular Adventist that doesn't believe that? And the White says nation after nation. So only one person doesn't believe that. The rest of us do? Do you believe that? That the gospel doesn't have to go to every nation, kindred, tongue and people.
Based on the context.
Based on the context. What's the context today?
Today with the improvement of technology, So the information, the way the information spreads, it has.
Don't tell me why, just tell me what the context is.
In our context, it is that the gospel, it is in Europe, it is in America, and even Africa. It has reached us. So you can see it is so the world then, it was Europe and America, but now you can see, well, Africa, we are privileged to have the gospel.
You know, we've got people from South America here and Australasia, just to remind you. So that covers most of the continents, doesn't it?
Yes.
So it's worldwide, which is against what you just said. The context is world.
So it is worldwide.
You just said it wasn't.
Who?
You did. So the message doesn't have to go to all the world.
No, me, I said what our brother Rogers has explained. If Christ was to come in the Millerite history.
I understand that. I asked what's the context today, and you said it's the world. The context in the Millerite history was North America and Europe. That would have been enough. That was your argument. But now it's worldwide. So why do you say portions of the world don't have to hear it?
Which one? No, I have not said that.
I asked if everybody disagrees that all the world must hear the gospel. And only one person put their hand up, which means you agreed that not all the world has to hear it.
No, whole world has to hear.
They does. Okay, so let me ask the question again. People here, Sister Elizabeth is saying, not all the world has to hear the message. Who disagrees with that? Put your hand up if you disagree. Okay, so two people disagree with that. But most of us are comfortable with the fact that not everybody has to hear this message. I find that interesting. Brother Robert?
Why is it that not everyone used to get it?
I'm guessing, I don't ask, logistics. The logistics mean that we can't do the work and we just don't have enough leverage and there's just too many people in too many places, we just can't get to them. It's a logistical issue. I'm guessing that's what people are saying, which is the argument about Millerite history. It's a logistical issue. I would contend that I think it's a little bit more than America and Europe, depending on how far you're going to stretch Millerite history. If you go into the 1888 period, you've certainly got South Africa in that time period. They've already received the gospel. In fact, the South Africans are financing the work in Australia, by and large. Sorry?
I have a question.
You have a question?
Yeah, because you suggest before that the reason why church is given a second chance is because there are many which have not yet had them. Can it not be possible if the world cannot hear? Can it not be another chance to be given so that the other people can hear?
You repeated what I said first, that the church has a second opportunity because they didn't hear. I didn't hear the last bit.
Okay, I'm saying, you said before that the reason why...
I got the first bit. What's the last bit that you said?
Okay, if we see that the world is like, can one not be given another chance so that they can get, because there are others...
Okay, unless you disagree, the word chance means line. You disagree with chance means line. Another chance, another line. Because we've portrayed, I know people don't agree, but I'm saying 2 chances for the church, 2 lines for the church. We've only got 1 line for the world, so I don't know how they have 2 chances.
Because the reason why the argument when you brought that the reason why church having 2 lines is because there are many. So if that is the case, then why is it not applying also to the one and there are many?
That's fine. If that's the case, you have to develop a model that shows the world has two opportunities. My brother yesterday mentioned, is it Luke 10 or Luke 19? Story of the Good Samaritan. 10, yes? And in that story, just if you take that story, you've got 2 Hebrews and 1 Gentile. Just in that one story tells you that the world only has one opportunity. There's 2 groups in the church, there's 1 in the world. Just that story, if you were to accept line upon line, or repeat and enlarge, or in samples. So I don't think you can argue that the world's going to have 2 opportunities.
No, I'm not arguing, but my problem is that you want to make you want to take the reason why there are many people in the country. That's why they are going to have to learn. If that is the case, then it can apply it. So I am saying that is not the reason.
Okay.
The reason, then we are going
So you tell me what the reason is. The Seventh-day Adventists get 2 opportunities. Some of them. Because priests don't get 2 opportunities. Because you're going down the same argument that my sister went down. That they heard it, but they're going to get 2 opportunities. And so then the Levites become a special case. If we're able to defend that, I'm not saying that I'm right in that, but you have to have a good defence to show that these people have 2 opportunities when priests don't and the world don't. I want to move on. Then what we looked at were all the symbols that Nethinims can come under. So we have Nethinims, and we had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If you put Ruth, we've got 12. Some of them are doubled up. We've got a lot of symbols for these worldly people. And the reason is, what? Why do we have so many symbols, my sister?
Because we have different characters.
We have different characters. You mean, in the world, we have different people. That's the reason? A bit more.
That's what they have.
If you have different characters, you're saying that's why you need different symbols? Because each symbol is one character? Something like that?
There are different ways of reaching them. I don't have
You do.
good explanation.
You do. There are different ways of approaching them. Carry on.
So that's why you have different characters.
Okay, so you've explained part of the story, but my question is, why do we have so many? Whose benefit is that for?
It's explaining to us the different characters that are in the world.
And who's us?
The priest.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Why have we got so many characteristics of these people? It's because
They are there.
they're there. But whose benefit is all this for?
For the priest.
For the priest. So if we wanted to extend this, we'd say for the priest and the Levites, because the Levites have to do the same work as us. Yep. Someone asked me recently, do the Levites have to learn all of this information that we know? Put your hand up if you say yes. Put your hand up if you say no. Okay? So If it's no, then the Levites don't have to learn how to be effective workers. If you said no, do you agree with that? They don't have to be effective workers. My sister? What do you think? The Levites have to know all of this information that we're talking about, our message. I wasn't sure which hand you put up. Did they have to know everything we know, or not everything we know? They have to, or they don't have to? They don't have to? Okay, so if they don't have to, then they're not going to be effective workers. Because to be able to work, you need an information base. So they do have to. So they have to know everything that we know. Okay, so I've persuaded you to change your position. I saw your hand. My brother, how comes you're at the front again? Yeah. Stay there today, but please don't stay in the same place. Do the Levites have to know everything we know? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. My sister? They don't have to.
Yeah, they have to know what they know. They have to know what their message.
What's their message?
What are we going to give them?
What are we going to give them?
Their message.
What are we going to tell them? Which bits will we miss out for them? Which bits will we miss? Will we say, oh, we'll leave that? We've got 100% of the message. We're going to give them 80%, 70%, some less. What will we skip? We say, oh, you don't need to learn that.
We don't have the same message as theirs.
No, I understand you said that. I'm asking you which bits are missing out. Which bits are we going to skip for them?
No, like we have different dispensations. Ours is different, theirs is different. So we give their message because of their dispensation.
I understand that. I'm asking you, what are we going to miss out?
We're not going to miss out anything. We're going to give them everything. Theirs. But ours, we're not going to give them.
What are we going to miss out that we received? That's what I'm asking. We were given something. What will we say? Oh, you don't need what we've got. Well, you just need this. What have we received that they don't need to have, that we have?
Okay, it's like we have two different dispensations, two different messages. We have our own message, right? Now, when it comes to their time, we only teach them their message. And they will not have to know.
I want to stop you. You repeat yourself 2 or 3 times now. What I want you to tell me is not the concept. I got that. I want you to tell me what we learned that we say, you don't need that. Only we needed that, but you don't need it. What did we need, but that they don't need? Just give me one thing.
It's not like they don't necessarily need it, but it's not that like important to maybe to let them know all about what our experience.
That's fine. Tell me what is not important then, if you want to go from they don't need to not important now. It's still the same thing. Do they not need to know 2520?
Not in detail.
Sorry?
Not in detail.
I'm sure half the people here don't know it in detail.
Yeah.
Do they need to know it in detail?
Not in detail. That's the view I was trying to bring.
Do the priests need to know the 2520 in detail?
Yeah.
Half the people here don't know it in detail.
Yeah, and it's not that much effective. Either you know it or you don't know it.
Now you're arguing against what you just said. Either you're going to put a bell curve on that. You know what a bell curve is? Like, if this is how many people you do this, most people know, few don't, and few are experts on it. That's how priests know the 2520. Some of us know hardly anything. Most of us know a little bit, and some of us are experts. Do you agree with that? If you're not sure, we'll call it 1 talent, 5 talents. Yeah? Based on our ability to learn. Most people are going to be in here. Okay? So, we all don't know the 2520 well. Some do. A few of us are really good at it. So do the Levites need to know the 25-20?
Yeah, the same as like some would know.
So they need to know the same thing. So what is it they don't need to know? Because now you're coming on to say that they need to know everything we do.
The point I was trying to try is that I'm just trying to say that they have limited time.
They have?
Limited time. Because if we trace back at history, we'll be like, this happened in our history, and this was happened now, and if the Levites, so theirs, it will be kind of dark.
Okay, they have limited time. Who joined this movement 2018? 17. Keep your hands up. 16. 15. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up if you came from 18, 17, 16, 15, 14. If you look, most people have only been here a short amount of time. They learn. If I'd gone to, who was here in 2001? There's not a hand up. And that's one of our crucial dates. So we've had to learn really quickly. We haven't learned, it hasn't taken us 30 years to learn. Some of us have learned in months.
So if our time was equivalent to theirs, if it would be equivalent to theirs, then they would have to learn. But what I'm saying is that they have limited time.
They don't?
They have limited time.
They have limited time.
Yeah, and that time would only be used to learn their message.
I would agree that perhaps they won't know as much as this person knows, or they may know a 4-talent person, but my question was, are they required to know everything that we know? Anybody disagree? Because I think we've sort of flipped. At the beginning, hardly anybody agreed. So my question is, they may not know it to the depths that we all know, but the problem is not all of us know our message well anyway. We're getting to a stage where the difference between the priest and the Levite actually isn't that well defined. If you came in 2 years ago and the Levite's going to come in next year or the year after, depending where 2021 comes, where they begin to enter, there's not that much difference between them, between the priest and the Levite. The reason I ask the question is because people have this assumption that we know everything, and we throw some scraps to the Levites. They don't need to know as much as us. You had your hand up?
I just wanted to find out when we come to the agricultural model, we understand that we don't interact with the Levites until their harvest. I mean, when they go through the experience of the plowing, early rain and the latter rain. I mean, this work is not done with the same message that as plowed as the latter rain we have received. They are not receiving the same messages. Are we saying when they come to their harvest, they are going to get the whole message we have been having? Because we know for sure in the experience, in the past 3 dispensations, they don't receive the same message as us.
So, the question is, or the suggestion is, the Levites come here in their harvest, and this is the only opportunity for them to actually hear and understand and learn the message. We don't know how much time they have to do that. We don't know from 2021 to when the Sunday law comes. But that may not be the case. That may not be the case. They may begin to have interaction with us before that. Do we define priests as people who come to our meetings? That if you get your friend or your relative and you say, come to our meetings, and they start getting interested and they say, I don't understand all of this, it's crazy, and they never really commit or join. Do we call those priests? So a Levite could be in a similar situation. They may not understand everything that's happening, they may not commit, but they could be coming to meetings, they could be watching videos, we don't know. So I'm not persuaded that everything happens at harvest. Someone asked the question, what happens between in this history, all those people that are joining us, who are they? Priests or Levites? That was a question that came up, I think, on day one. And my response was, no one joins. And people find that surprising because they say, in real life, people are coming. So I think it depends what we mean by joining. Is joining when you sign up to be a committed member, or is joining just attending? Is joining getting baptized, or is joining something else? Okay, so the reason why we've got all of these models here, the purpose is to help the priests. That's for our benefit, not the world's benefit. Obviously they will receive the benefit. We have all these models so that we can become better workers. There is an additional benefit, because the more you meditate and study upon God's word, it changes you. Yeah? You become, I don't know what you want to call it, more sanctified, more holy, you become more Christ-like. The closer you approach God, and you approach God through all of these models. Anybody want to comment or question that?
My question is, it is at Biant or at our Pentecost that now we are going to start calling the Levites.
One second. At Panium, we're going to start calling the Levites. I just need to repeat because people don't hear.
I say it is at Biant or at our Pentecost.
Yeah, we're here. So we're here at Panium.
We are now going to start calling the Levites.
Okay.
Calling the line. And then, at the same place, the line is saying it was a clause of probation for the Levites.
Okay.
Then I want to understand, because the clause of probation for the priest was at November 9. And they closed once, and we saw two classes of people, other people leaving, other people continuing up to now. But now, the clause of probation for the Levites, it is at a point of which they have not even heard of any message from us. And then how are we going to do that? Because we are taking the message, we are going to some to them, while it is their clause of probation, but we are going to them after now their clause of probation.
I don't know if everybody heard the question. So this question is based upon what Brother William just said, and I think what probably many of us believe. This picture work here. 2021, Panium. Close of probation for the Levites, that's what you said. So, the close of probation is there, and we say, in this history, what did we say in this history? That's what the dispensation is called. Sister Snyder, what do we say? Sorry? What do we say?
What do you mean, what do we say?
What's happening in this dispensation?
The harvest for the Levites.
Okay. Who does that work? How does it happen?
they've been given the message.
So what do we say?
We give them a message.
Yeah, what do we tell them?
Join the movement.
Okay? We say join the movement. So the problem that my brother has is we say here we start to speak. Yeah? We start to speak to them, we say come out, and we start giving them this message. So you're saying there's two things. We start to speak, which says come out and we'll teach. Yeah? And this person's going to come out here, he's going to join us, and we haven't even had a chance to teach him or her. That's your question. Yeah? How can they join us if we haven't even taught them? If they join here, we'll at least have some period to teach them before they join.
But what confuses me is that their profession has already closed. So, how will they open the door to come out of the profession which is closed there? Because that is a close, that is what? A COP for them. Yes, so, if that is a close of profession for them, so it means somebody should open his own or our own door which is closed, because they are, I know they are closed now behind the door. So they have to open their door for them to come out, because it is that point is their close of probation. So what makes somebody whose probation has closed to continue moving? It's the point I want.
Okay? So I think I've laid out your question correctly. Just want to hold the question for a moment. You had your hand up before, not related to that, but something else.
I think it's a question.
Sure.
I don't know if you're going to address it later, but when you look at the history of 19 to 21, in the line of the Christ is the cross and Pentecost. The disciples are in their period.
So this time period, 19 to 21, is the period from the cross to Pentecost.
Yeah, and then you see Matthias coming to join the 11. I don't know if he represents something, but I'm not so sure, because I have been thinking that he represents the priest.
So we'll stop there. So in that history, just before Pentecost, the number 11 is made up to number 12. It's made up by, or they cast votes on two people, and both of those people, the requirement is that they had to be part of the movement from the very beginning. It says that from the very beginning. And they choose Matthias. So they're choosing someone who was there from the very beginning.
So I've been thinking that whoever is joining the movement now is a priest, but he had to be acquainted with us even before 2019, the close of probation.
Okay, so the question is, in this history here, Matthias, what is Matthias doing according to the model that you just said? He's joining us?
He's making up the number 12.
Okay, and what is your question?
Who does he represent?
Who does he represent?
If no one is, though you have said if no one is joining.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. You use the term joining. So you're saying Matthias is joining. So how can you join something that you're already a part of?
And then my thought is, whoever is joining the movement now is really not like a Levite, but we can solve that by saying he was already a part of us, but perhaps he didn't come up forefront to identify himself with the movement.
So you got 11 disciples, and they say there was a secret member amongst us. We don't know who it was, but we're going to finally discover him now. The passage doesn't teach that, does it? What does the passage say? even if it's just a paraphrased version of it.
He was part of the ministry of God.
I want to say it this way. They say, whoever does the work, go and find some people. So you have to go and look for them. And what's the criteria that you're looking? They should have been here from the very beginning. So that means they knew that they were there from the very beginning. They knew who they were. They weren't secret people. Everyone knows who they were. They either joined or they didn't join at the beginning. So if you've already joined at the beginning, you can't rejoin now. Can you?
Did Matthias know he was part of the 12?
When?
When?
In this period, when he's chosen?
Yeah.
Yeah, when they told me, he said, now you're part of the 12.
No, before that. Did he know?
He wasn't part of the 12 before that. He was a disciple. Let me ask you another question. If you're going to do that model, was Mary Magdalene, was she a priest?
Yeah.
She wasn't one of the 12.
No.
So was Matthias a priest beforehand? Because he wasn't one of the 12 either.
Yeah.
So he's a priest before. So what's he joining? Sorry?
The apostle.
Okay, so what you could do is you could develop a model, say, what we're going to do in this time period is we're going to choose new leaders. You could argue that. If the 12 are a symbol of leadership, you've got 12 leaders, you could say, oh, we didn't have enough leaders, so we're going to have some more leaders. But the joining isn't some anonymous person that we hadn't heard of that suddenly joins us now, and we say, oh, he must be a priest, or she must be a priest, because they just joined us now. We didn't see them before. Because the model itself says we choose who those people were, and the criteria is we already know who they were. You see?
Yeah, I get the point.
Okay.
Yeah, I get the point.
Okay, you get the point. Before you do that, people use Matthias to argue in this history that we're going to have strange people join us. That they're kind of in between a proper priest like you and a real Levite. There's something in between. We don't know what they are, but they're joining us here. But the story itself says that it's not new people. They're already existing people. So whatever that joining of the 12 means, does it mean that they're not priests? Or does it mean something else?
I understand what you're trying to illustrate, but no new stranger will come and join the movement from November 9th to be a priest. But now I have a problem, maybe you can help me. Maybe we have had brethren we have been laboring to the Adventist church. People have accepted the message. They even come into small groups, but they do not join the movement. So can we also claim that such men, such people we have been having an interaction with, people do not have problems with the message, but had not yet made a decision to join us? Can they be the Matthias now?
No, because this Matthias was a fully paid up member. He was already part of the disciples before this history.
So what do we call them, or can we claim that they failed to come, so except for whatever amount of them, they will never join the movement?
I think the way you've expressed it is saying these are really good people who believed everything but didn't join. Why did they not join if they believed it? Why would they join if they didn't believe?
So we didn't have, maybe the things we shared were not so much convincing to them. They still are making up their minds.
So the problem is your incompetency, which is what all this is about. So we're incompetent teachers. So if someone's not a good teacher and someone says, well, I'm not persuaded, who do we blame?
Whoever says is not persuaded, I'm not persuaded. Maybe he has refused to yield.
Yeah, that's correct. But the model you just gave was, you just said it yourself, maybe they didn't understand it properly, which means they're honest-hearted. That's the way you just expressed it. So don't switch to give the other view. If we go down the route that you said, who's to blame? It's us. So this is this problem here. If the problem is us, and we haven't taught them well, we can't blame them. You can't turn them into something that they're not. If we haven't taught people properly, which is the reason why they haven't joined, then that makes them a Levite, doesn't it? If they were taught properly, they would have joined us properly, and then they would have left properly. But if we have people who are always in the shadows, never fully committed, got something, but for whatever reason, we're not 100% on board, in a genuine fashion, because it's our fault, they become Levites. If they reject the message, Future for America, that's the epitome of people who are fully engaged, bought into this message. We know that because they're the ones who teach it. So they are our primary facial evidence that once you accept and you walk away, then you're part of this group. You're a priest, a real priest. And you walk away from that message, evidenced by the fact that you were baptized. So I would suggest Matthias doesn't mean someone new joining us. Let me ask this question because you've raised the subject of Matthias. What's the qualification for being part of the 12? What was Judas Iscariot's problem from the very beginning? What was the issue with him? This is the Desire of Ages version. You don't see it in the scriptures itself. What was the problem with him compared to the other disciples, my sister? Not sure? So, we spoke about these 5. These were the 5... this one here. 5 disciples. Who chose those 5 disciples? Okay, so what's the problem with Judas Iscariot? Giving you the clue. He was not chosen by Jesus. It's the 11 disciples, say it in a rough way, they're the ones that pushed Judas forward, a man of capability, a man who was handsome and looked the part. They pushed him forward and said, he should join our movement. Do you have your hand up? Okay, express it in your own words, please. Express it in your words. You tell me what you want to say.
I wanted to say that Judas was not called by Jesus.
Judas was not called by Jesus. Okay, is that a problem? Is that a problem?
Yes.
Yes, it's a problem. So I want to ask you, who was Matthias called by?
The issue of Matthias is a bit confusing.
Okay, so I want to try and deconstruct it because people are confused. So we've tackled one part of Matthias' story, is that he's not someone new. He's identifiable, and I'm going to say in the context of us, he was baptized. He was a fully baptized priest, committed to the movement, which qualifies him to come here. So my question to you was, who chose Matthias? The disciples. So he doesn't have the same quality or characteristics as the 11.
I think he has.
What qualifies you to be part of the 11?
Good.
Number one characteristic.
maybe
Who chooses you?
Christ himself.
So Christ chooses you, and the problem with Matthias is
The disciples.
the disciples. Is that a problem?
I don't know.
Why don't you think so? If you know it's a problem for Judas, why is it not a problem for Matthias? Okay, I'm going to show you it's a problem. We started off with 12, we then went to 11, and now we've gone to 12. What's the perfect number?
The perfect one was
There's 12 tribes,
okay.
12 elders, 12 apostles, it's 12. So this is the perfect number. Which is why, when they're at 11, that's why they do Matthias, isn't it? Why don't they just say, oh, we have 11, that's enough.
My point is, we can see as 12 is the perfect number, but why again did Jesus only chose 11?
Maybe he didn't get around to choosing the 12th one. Maybe he was about to choose the 12th one and they said, let's bring in the devil. I don't know the story to that, but if it's 12, 12 should have been the right number. Maybe it has to be this way to teach us some lessons. I don't know how God's mind works, but we do know it's 12 because the disciples, the apostles know it's 12, so they have to add one in. Yeah?
Yeah, I think. Okay, maybe Jesus was planning to join Paulo after.
Sorry? Maybe?
He wanted to join to bring power.
Bring power.
Paul.
Okay, so that's the question I want to ask. 3 years later, we're going to get to what number? You're already at 12. Plus 1. You're going to get to 13. This is Matthias, and this is Paul. And who chose Paul? And what's Paul's argument when he says, I'm a fully qualified apostle? What's his evidence or proof? That Christ chose me. He knows how the rules work. Because all the others said, you're not even a proper apostle. Because you're so ugly. And he says, no, that's not the qualification. Qualification is not ugly people or handsome people. It's Christ choosing the people. Because who's the handsome one? Judas was the handsome one. Paul wasn't. Paul had lots of problems. So the qualification is this. So do we have 11, 12, 13? Is that what we have? How would we approach this? You've got two options. Progression and repeat and enlarge. Which one would it be? Maybe both. But one thing that we do know is this is repeat and enlarge. So you don't have 13, you have 12. And whatever the story of Paul is teaching, it's teaching something. And whatever the story of Matthias is teaching, it's teaching something. So I would argue the story of Matthias, as a minimum, is teaching us that we need to have reorganization in this dispensation. From 19 to 21. We're not ready. We don't have harmony. Special work needs to be done. And one of the primary stories that teaches that is the story of Matthias. That we need to have a reorganization, or we could say it in a different way, we need a perfection or a refinement of the organization that we already have. They don't re-vote for 12 new people, do they? The organization that they already have, they refine it and perfect it. So this is the history here. One of the problems that we have here is the perfection of organization needs to occur. Are we okay with that? Yep. My brother at the back, you had your hand up? A question?
So you say that they are not in harmony, the priests.
I didn't say that, someone else said that. Don't blame me. I just put it on the board.
Did you agree with that person?
Do you agree with that?
No, you.
Yeah, I'm asking, do you agree? Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree, but I don't know in which way are we not in harmony.
That's fine. It doesn't say on the board in which way. It just says we're not in harmony. So whoever said that, they're not in harmony, I didn't ask them to explain. I just put it on the board. Because what I want to do is try and find out what we're not in harmony about. What we're not in harmony about. Because there must be something that we're not in harmony about. So you agree that we're not in harmony, but you don't know what we're not in harmony about? How do you know we're not in harmony then? If you don't have no idea what it's talking about. Because you must have an idea. You tell us what your thoughts are. Just one thing that we're not in harmony with.
I think maybe you cannot be in harmony of understanding the prophecy at the same level.
Okay, so I had some board work here. And this is about levels. So this is a bell curve, a statistical thing. There's a few people who know little, and there's a few people who know a lot. We'll say this is 100%, 10%, and 50%. So I would suggest, if you believe in the 25-20, and my sister over here believes in the 25-20, and she knows more than you, you're in harmony. You just don't understand things in the same way. I don't think that's a symbol of no harmony. I think the issue of lack of harmony is when you don't agree on issues. Not if you agree, but don't fully understand everything. People here will say, because people expect me to know everything, and I don't. They say, oh, I think I've got this theory, I've got this idea. What do you think? They ask me, what do I think? I say, I have no idea. But it seems okay, so we're in harmony. But I don't understand it to the same degree that they do. So, you agree that we're not in harmony. So let's take a risk now. I don't know where you're from or how many people you know here. I guess you don't know that many people, but you know some. Which country are you from? South Sudan. So you know what I believe, because you've seen, hopefully, presentations that I've done. Yeah? You have a rough idea of what I teach or preach or believe in. Agree with that? Are you and I in harmony? Because I don't know what you believe, but you know what I believe. So you would know if you and I are in harmony. Are you and I in harmony? You don't know him, unless you do. You know him? I don't know who said yes. They said we are. Are you and I in harmony? Yes. So you agree and believe everything that I do? Or that you've heard me teach? On the secret things you obviously don't know, because I haven't spoken about them. But all my public ideas or whatever, you say, yep, I agree with that. We're in harmony. I'm in harmony with Parminder.
So, according to my view also, what I was trying to think of, harmony cannot come only through the messages.
So that harmony cannot come?
Only through messages.
How can it come?
You can be in harmony in messages, but you cannot be in harmony in other issues.
Like what?
No.
Sorry? You have to know. The way we treat people? Is that what you mean?
No, I'm not speaking.
Sorry? I didn't hear what you said.
Pardon your question.
Repeat my question, sure. You said We need to be harmony on the message. I'll say like, this is the message. This is the message. That boardwork is the message. You agree that we have to be in harmony on the message. You agree with that? So I asked you before that, are you and I in harmony? And you said yes. And I'm assuming now what you meant was that all the doctrines, the theology that I've spoken about, you're in agreement with that. And then you said that's not enough. It's not enough just to be in harmony on the message. We need to have more harmony. So my question was, what is the more harmony that we need to be in? If not the message, what else do we need to be in harmony about? The reason I'm asking this question is because it's an important question that my brother is raising, because then people may express it differently, but this issue comes up over and over again, but people express it differently, and I'm liking the way he expresses it. So that's why please don't think that I'm pushing or attacking you. I just want to use your question to help all of us learn something. So tell me what extra harmony that we need to be in that's besides the message.
The reason why I come up with this one as well, we have the line of the apostle. We line up with the line of the priest. And also we say 2019 to 2021, we compare it with the upper room, when the apostle were in the upper room. So we are doing what? Sorting out the differences. So that's what I want to know, clarification, because our line is matching with the line of those apostles. That's why we say the line of success. So what were those differences? Because if I can see in the Bible, it's not only concerning the prophetic belief, but also in their other moral behavior.
Okay, so in this time period, they're 10 days in the upper room and they want to sort out their differences. And you're suggesting, you didn't say explicitly, that the differences are the moral conduct towards one another, the way they treat one another. Yeah? And you said that is separate from the message. If I understand you correctly. Yeah? So, this issue hasn't been dealt with properly in this movement for a long time. And I think the reason it hasn't is because of misunderstandings. So what I want to do is I just want to address this question. We have to close our class now. We're at the end. I want to close, so if we can remember what my brother's concern is, what his question is. So we've got two questions. We had three questions. One of them was about Matthias. Hopefully the question about Matthias has been addressed, at least at a conceptual level. We could go back and study it. Matthias isn't someone new. He's just a priest. He's joining the 12. He's not a symbol of someone joining the movement. I want to suggest it's a symbol of organisation. Not of reorganisation, but a perfection of organisation, bringing back to this perfect number. Paul, who is also a symbol of the 12, we could say that he's the real apostle, Matthias wasn't. He also is the symbol of 12, and we would have to study what his life means as the number 12. And all you do, we don't know anything about Matthias really after that. He's just chosen, we don't hear his stories. But Paul we do know. Paul, his symbol of being part of that 12 is someone who does mission, who gives the everlasting gospel. So at least we have some clues about that. So hopefully I answered that question. The other question that we had is, my brother says, they've got a shut door, and the way he expressed it, whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. He says they're on the wrong side of the door. They're on the churchy side of the door and it's been shut. And we're saying, come out. And there's Bible passages that say once that door is shut, no person can open the door. So how can he or she come out and open that door and join us if the door has been shut? So that was his question. We haven't answered that one. And my other brother was saying, this issue of harmony, you know, it's all okay to be in harmony on the message, but life is more than the message. There's morality, how we treat one another. Isn't that important? Are we all going to get to heaven being rude and disrespectful to one another, but we all believe in the 25-20? Which is kind of how we portray ourselves when we give the message to the church. And one of the reasons why the church doesn't like us is they say, you believe in 9/11, but you're horrible people. Yeah? That's what his point is. This is not a new point. This point has been a contentious issue for a long time in our movement. And if we're now saying we're in this time period where there's no harmony, he's saying, what does that mean? So we'll try and, I'm not saying we're going to resolve it in our next class, but we're going to try and look at that issue about what harmony means, what we're referring to. We may not get there because his question is basically what this whole study is about. What does it mean that we're not in harmony? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for your goodness and mercy. Lord, we ask and pray that you would be with us and guide us in the meditation and the study of your word. Father, in a class of this size, we know that it's easy to become distracted, to lose focus, because there's not interaction and people have thoughts and ideas that can wander away. May each of us realise, Lord, the great privilege, but also the solemnity of being here at this prophecy school in this time in Earth's history. May each of us pay attention and not be distracted by the cares and worries of this world. Be with us, Father, and bless us. May the food that we're to eat now give us nourishment and strength. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.